This weekend, it's a relatively short trip to Watford, and to help us preview that game, I'm pleased to say that we're going to be joined by Pete from the Watford podcast, which is Do Not Scratch Your Eyes. Thanks, Pete. Thanks for joining us tonight. The first thing we need to talk about is that wonder goal from Wesley Hoedt at the weekend. I'm not going to swear, but what the hell?
Yeah, no, it was a delight. And, well, of course it was. We'd had a penalty saved earlier on to keep us in the game or keep it 1-1. And then he wellied it from about 45 yards. And Valerian Ismail, our manager, and still our manager, because he always has to kind of clarify these things with Watford, came out and said, yeah, well, we knew he comes out a long way, so we've been planning to do. Yeah, right, of course you had. In fairness, we played a couple of weeks ago against Leicester, and their goalkeeper comes out like beyond their centre backs. So I can believe that they went, well, maybe give it a go, and he did. So, yeah, Wesley Hoedt is he quite likes himself. I imagine tomorrow he'll like himself even more at the training ground.
It was just a quote, like you say, from the manager. He says, "I'm not surprised. It's a drill we face all the time." Like, he's just pinging them in every week. That's not the player that we had at Southampton.
We also planned to concede the penalty, save it, and then the subsequent. Yeah, of course we did. Never mind.
I mean, let's be honest. That was one of the better games of the season, right? A win away at a playoff rival. You got to be happy with how that played out.
I'm delighted at the phrase "playoff rival," to be quite frank, because until we got that win, we've not even been within crikey telescope distance of the playoffs. We had only won one. I mean, we beat Swansea the other week. Prior to that, we hadn't won an away game since February. So we've now won 2. So that's great. And things are starting to improve. We started off the season really badly. I say really badly. We were 4-0 up after 45 minutes against QPR. But what we really kind of all went, are they really that bad? And the answer was yes, now known as the Gareth Ainsworth effect, of course. And then we kind of just had games where we would play well, but just always miss out or lose by the odd goal or not break people down. We got right royally stuffed at Leeds. We got our trousers and everything handed to us at Sunderland, but we just didn't turn up in those games. And then since not the last international break, but the one before that block of 6 games, we went unbeaten. 3 wins, 3 draws, but an absolute turning around of the of the Titanic that was our season, heading in the traditional fashion that Titanic seasons do. And more than anything, that's because of Jake Livermore, who's come into the middle of the park. We've had him since the start of the season, but clearly fitness or whatever it was, and he has played out of his skin, the gent. So we're now 9 games with 1 defeat, which was away at Leicester. So otherwise, we would be looking at the weekend with a fair amount of intrepidation, I would say.
So you must be quite confident going into the weekend then, because, I mean, you're 3 points off the playoffs now, and if it's all starting to click, then this is a game that you can look forward to.
I don't think confidence is the natural emotional state of Watford fans. Basically, our fight or flight or sack the manager mechanism is kind of normally set high. And in this instance, we know that what we've got, I mean, what we are is one of those teams, and it could be like yourselves, but obviously you're having a good season, whereby that second season in the Championship having come down, especially as we'd only gone back up for a year, we only had 2 years worth of parachute money. So we've seen an absolute shredding of the wages. And I appreciate nobody watches finance, they just watch the football. But it's making this particular team, strangely, especially now this turn of results, a lot more likable than a lot of teams have been for about the last 4 seasons, whereby it's been, the football has been poor, unsurprising when you fire your manager every, is it a Tuesday? Well, go and fire him then. And it's been sort of this now. We've got a younger team. We've got certainly a less expensive team. We've still got some flair in there, genuine flair for this division, and it's starting to be likable. But confident, no, I'd say we're still in the pragmatic camp, but we are starting to like the team first. Then we'll get to the overconfidence at a later stage, in order that our hope is then dashed.
Do you think, given the new contract to the manager, do you think that had any effect on the results? Because it was, as you say, it was a pretty awful start to the season, and then they come out and offer him a new contract. You're like, okay, well, maybe they're sticking by him, or is that? Am I just reading the headlines? Is there more to it than that?
When you haven't got the money to sack yet another manager, there's only one direction to go in. We sold £50 million worth of talent in the summer. And I appreciate I'm answering your question indirectly, but this is kind of where it goes to. In Sarr and Pedro. And we bought in £50,000 Paul Tom Ince, not Paul Ince, thank Christ. But anyway, and it was like, and then we've gone and bought this 1.3 million Danish lad who does nothing outside of the box. And no, fair play. He started to actually think I could do some link up play yesterday, but very, very basic stuff. And that's pretty much been it. The rest is waifs and strays, and people have been bought in that regard. So in relative terms, what I think the management saw was the fact that we have had an absolutely chronically awful culture in the dressing room. Player power. I mean, you just have a look at the managers who've gone and how many times they've downed tools and gone, oh, I'm not going to work for him. I'm not going to play for him, which kind of seems understandable, really. If you know that actually your manager is basically on a temp contract, you're probably not going to listen that much. They liked what they saw. He's a fearsome character, he's quite stern and straightforward. He's got everybody on point. He bought them in a week early, had a 7-week pre-season, all at the training ground, no going away, no expense, just thrifty, do it right. And I think the ownership looked and saw what he's done and like what he's done with what he's got, which is a much reduced canvas to what our previous managers have been playing with. But hopefully what we're seeing is a little bit more than the sum of its individual parts, whereas over the last 4 seasons, completely the other way around. Expensive people who just got a huff if they got asked to do something.
I remember those pictures of the Watford players turning up for pre-season, and everyone was like, "What? Really? So early?" Glen, what have you made of Watford? I mean, we've had some great games against them over the years. I think last time we played them, it was that Che Adams goal that you referenced earlier on, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Was the last time we played them away.
Yeah, and everyone, of course, remembers the Shane Long goal after 7 seconds or whatever it was. So yeah, Watford have always been an interesting club to play against. I must admit, since the managerial merry-go-round started with these new owners, I kind of gave up following Watford a little bit because I never really knew what was going on, and the managers never lasted long enough to make any sort of impression on me. But it's interesting what you say about the team being more likable now. That's definitely something that happens when you offload the high wage earners that got you relegated in the first place.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you say likable.
The thing with the managers, and I always, sorry to butt in, but I always have to clarify,
That's right.
is that, and people look at the owners, is that as Watford, and I appreciate you've had a long history, as have we. Ours has not necessarily been that magnificent, and we've never won a major trophy. Our biggest glory period was 6 years in the top flight under Graham Taylor, an FA Cup final, and 2 FA Cup semi-finals. Since the Potsos came in and started doing this, sack them, move them out. We've had 6 seasons in the Premier League. We've had an FA Cup final, albeit getting absolutely gubbed by Man City, but hey, and 2 cup semi-finals. So they've kind of recreated it. What happened about that 4 years ago was we hit that FA Cup final, and certain contracts and relationships sort of broke down at the club a little bit. There was supposed to be bonus payments that didn't make. You saw people downing tools. You saw a season where we, kind of fell out the bottom of the Premiership, and it was sort of, that went wrong. Because what we stopped doing was the other side of it, which is moving players on and bringing the next lot in, because you've got to be a conveyor belt. Otherwise, if you're forcing players to either stay there or not giving them the bonuses, they're going to sit there and they stink the place out. And that's where it sort of went wrong. The first 6 years, I mean, we have to say, hands up, we went, my God, we've won the lottery. Until we got Man City and Newcastle and went, oh no, we should have gone for the Euro Millions. But it's it is what it is.
Yeah, I find it interesting you mentioned the word likable, and then we're all talking about Wesley Hoedt because he was kind of symptomatic of where Saints started to crash. 2017-18, we had the transfer windows from hell, bringing in him, Mario Lemina, Guido Carrillo. So that was sort of 65 million down the pan on nothing. I mean, Wesley, he was at the physical attributes, decent in the area. He had that ping with his left foot, which we saw at the weekend, but obviously thought he was miles better than he actually was. And I quite fancy him for a mistake this weekend, because he'll be keen to prove how brilliant he is. And I can just imagine him doing something stupid, like trying to dribble out of defence and show everybody that he's the next coming of Virgil van Dijk, which is what he was supposed to be when he signed for us. So we'll see. Yeah, we actually signed him to replace Van Dijk, who we knew was going to leave. Let's get another Dutchman in. Yeah, that worked.
He has come in. I mean, you understand what I mean when I say he loves himself a bit. I mean, he does. I mean, for the first 3 months, I wasn't convinced, but then I saw his wife, and that more than pushed me over the line. But in this season, he's going to be up there for player of the season or thereabouts. He's been handed the armband primarily because our goalkeeper captain, which is a dreadful combination of things to have with the latest ruling, because he's been booked about twice for running 60 yards to say, I'm the only one who can talk with you. Oh, here's a yellow card. And then he got sent off against Leicester. And he's been doing things simply, and he's been doing it well. So I hope I feel like he's calming down. He's certainly, I think, getting very good reviews for what he's doing. I think he's bringing a lot to us in terms of leadership. And I think Jake Livermore coming in as well gives him another person who doesn't really need an armband in order to actually lead. And that's another thing that we've missed for those years, definitely.
Alfie, a full week to work on things for Russell Martin. That's going to be a relief after a busy week.
Yeah, and after obviously losing a couple of bodies as well, I suppose, with Ross and Camerdeem. So I suppose that'll be a little bit refreshing. I don't think it's going to be easy, though, is it? Because you're just looking back at Watford's results now. I mean, they haven't lost a game apart from Leicester, which they conceded 2 late goals in, and it's Leicester who are running away to the top of it. They haven't lost a game since the start of October. So it's going to be interesting. I've been to Vicarage Road before, so I'm sort of looking forward to the visit as well. And I'm quite intrigued to see what the front three that Russell Martin settles on, because I think I can pick the rest of the team quite comfortably. I think probably all can. But it'll be interesting to see for me if Che Adams keeps his place, if he goes with Sam Edozie, plays a more natural wide man. But they're going to have to come up with a solution, because as we know, we're not going to have Ross or Camerdeem until probably the end of the transfer window. So unless they get somebody in early doors in January, which didn't sound like the plan, we're going to be without a few.
Do you agree, Fraser? There isn't really anybody that's played themselves out of the team this last week. It's going to be a few interesting decisions come 2:00 on Saturday to see who slots in and who starts up front.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Alfie's right. I think the only run really is potentially sort of whether you go Dozy or out wide. I think where it's an away game and sort of what Watford might look to do, I think we might benefit from having some pace out wide or someone that can carry the ball a bit. I mean, Adams did all right yesterday. He worked hard enough. He didn't do anything remarkable, but he did better than he has done probably more recently, I think. But like I said earlier, and like I think Alfie referred to, I think that shape is not going to be used every game, that sort of 4-4-2 diamond shape. And I think I think there's places up for grabs in the front line, and it'd be interesting to see what Martin decides to do. I think the other thing, Pete, is I would say that having your pants pulled down by, or trousers pulled down by Sunderland at Sunderland happens to the best of us. So
you're in good company.
Yeah, wouldn't worry about that one too much.
Yeah.
We are referring to a football match in this scenario.
Pete, I mean, how are they going to set up for this game? What sort of a game are we going to expect, and who do we need to look out for on Saturday?
We play a 4-3-3. Almost exclusively until in the last couple of games we've kind of reverted to a back five when we're looking to hold on to the game. We did it yesterday, which basically gave everybody kind of heart murmurs, but they did it well. But we go with a 4. You will probably see Hoedt as the left-sided centre-back. Undoubtedly you will do, because he's the only one with a left peg in that particular role. Ryan Porteous next to him, who's been a bit iffy but done well over the last couple of games. We will probably see basically Hamer in goal rather than Bachmann, because he was out for the Norwich game that we played, but he kept him out. And he's been talking about changing the captaincy because of the things that everybody's been talking about this. Right side, you'll see a guy called Ryan Andrews. He's the son of a former player of ours, Wayne Andrews. So, a little bit of royalty there. Left side will be Jamal Lewis. So that's playing as a back 4, but the wing backs get on. They also occasionally do that kind of inverted thing where we all pretend that we're now Pep Guardiola, but we're really not. Jake Livermore sits in front. If he lasts 90 minutes, we look much better. He went off on 60 minutes against Leicester. We conceded in the 75th, and then there was a penalty at the end. And it wasn't all down to him. but hey, you do the math. In front of him, you'll probably see Kayembe, Edo Kayembe, who was a player who was brought in 2 years ago, hasn't really done very much, and he's typically played in a more defensive position, but he's playing in as a number 8, along with a Canadian international guy called Ishmael Kone, who hit a stonking goal to turn it around when we were 2-0 down at home on Tuesday to Norwich. We play those 2 number 8s pretty side specific, and he inverts them all the time. So Kone on the left, who's right-footed, Kayembe on the right, who's left-footed. Imran Louza hasn't got inside of the team because he's an expensive luxury player who would be lovely to be in the Premiership, but doesn't seem to think that he belongs to be where he is, if that makes sense. Wide right, we'll see either Yasser Asprilla or Tom Ince, getting his name right, who they kind of rotate around. You either get, this Colombian wunderkind who scored the winner by going around the keeper with a ridiculous oblique angle, and he's like a Poundland Phil Foden for me, or you get Tom Ince, who gives you a lot of professionalism, and he came on and helped see out the game yesterday against Hull, who were really good to look at and had lots of players to run at you. And wide left, either Mateus Martins he started the season, he would cut in and put that kind of curling ball into the far post and did it very nicely. But Ken Sema, who most people in the Championship will have seen, who's more of an orthodox left winger, that's given us more kind of get to the line and pull it back, because this gentleman that we've got, Mileta Rajovic, is a quintessential big number 9 in the box, doesn't do much outside of it. So it'll be a 4-3-3, and kind of we'll see how it goes. But I mean, hopefully it'll just be, I heard you talking about the Premiership and the Championship. Hopefully it'll just be good Championship fare, because that's the thing that's made this more likable. Is each game it's people going blood and thunder, and if you score or you concede a goal, you're not checking the screen first. Makes all the difference.
It's true. Pete, before we let you go, I'm going to trouble you for a score prediction, but I'll go around the screen first. So, Fraser, you've got the honour of going first with your score prediction for Watford, please.
I'm going to go quite optimistic. I think I'm going to go 3 clean sheets in a row, 2-0 Saints.
Okay, Glenn?
I feel that Watford are in the playoff chasing sort of pack, similar to Cardiff, Bristol City, Birmingham. Birmingham were at the time; they're not so much now. Who, I feel that we'll be too good if we play properly with no complacency, and we go in and look to get the job done from the first whistle. I just think we'll have a little bit too much. So I'm going to go for a narrow 1-0.
Okay, Alfie, your first trip to Vicarage Road?
Yeah, I like the way he talks about the team. I think it will make for an interesting game. I think they'll probably, let's say 4-3-3 versus 4-3-3, it'll be well matched, I think. So I'm actually going to say a 2-2 draw, because I think they'll be a good side. Okay, and Pete?
On our one, we don't let people say 1-1, so I'll say 1-1. The freedom and the fact that it will absolutely incense my fellow podcasters back there. 1-1. Why not?
Brilliant. Listen, that was really useful. Thanks for coming on, and enjoy the weekend, and good luck for the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll catch up next time we play. So cheers, Pete.
Absolutely. Safe travels, anybody who's coming up. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.